Hello, everyone. Welcome to another OffSec Live. I'm Assume Mentor Plants, and today we'll cover internal. It is a Windows machine available on PG Practice. I already have my virtual machine Kali boot up here, and I am logged into our portal, and we can search for this machine today, internal, and the result will show up. It is a Proving Grounds practice box. I'll start the machine and wait for it to boot up. That is a normal VPN output, nothing to panic about. Once the machine is up and running, we will start with, as usual, if not always, our nmap scan and see what comes back, etc. Now that the machine is up and running, I'm going to copy this address, and we are going to scan this host. I will do the all port scan, and I will specify A, and I'm going to save my output. Before we do that, I will actually create another directory for this machine, internal. And after everything has been specified, we can provide the IP address of this machine, and we can begin the scan. While we wait for the result to come back, here is the first pop quiz of today's live session. There will be 3 pop quizzes total throughout the entire session, and the winners have a chance to win 1 month subscription to Proving Grounds practice. The first question is, what does this -a do in the nmap command? If you answer the question in our Twitch chat, I will make a note of it and keep track, and the winners will be contacted after looking for the exact information I'm looking for in a very simple, um, direct manner like this or this, as opposed to if I'm not familiar with this, I'll of course bring up the help page and kind of go through every single line because I'm not familiar with it. But otherwise, if I kind of know what I'm doing to confirm my knowledge, I'll run it in this manner often. Just a little more to go. While we wait, what we also can do is think something like to see if this hosts a web server of some sort. Doesn't seem to be the case, or 443, which I think the browser already appended HTTPS earlier. And if this doesn't turn out, that's perfectly fine. I'm just completely guessing without any information whatsoever that this machine hosts a web server or any of the sort. So this is not too much of a big deal, even if nothing shows up. We can also attempt and connect to like SMB or FTP or things like that. I think it has been more than 9 seconds. This is not definitive. I have noticed that this can change sometimes. It's not like, oh, this will for sure 100% take only 9 seconds more. It can take more depending on how the command was run. Um, this is taking much longer than usual. It can take, oh, there's a result. So I was kind of hitting enter several times and it said a minute and 1 minute and 5 seconds, but then it kind of, the result came back somewhat very quickly. It didn't take a minute and 5 seconds since I hit enter. So it's not exactly definitive. Let's go through the result here. We have a domain name server running on port 53. I see SMB. It seems to be Windows Server 2008. And because that's now it's 2024 and quite outdated, there may be some publicly available exploit scripts. I can also see that RDP is running. So this kind of indicates that we may be able to find some credentials and use them to log into the machine. I think from what I can find here, what's important is we have the domain name, computer name, it's all internal. So whenever you see results like this, it is important to add that information to our host file so that we can kind of correctly point at the right machine. I'm going to open the host file and add that information here. The format, there are two examples already by default. We supply the IP address and the name. So now, for instance, if we run like this, that will do the same thing. That'll point to this IP address. I'm going to, I already saved the file and I'm going to close the window. Let's keep looking through the result here a little bit. Because I used the A flag, it also ran some scripts here. So how we look at this is these are the script names, I think. Yeah, so nbstat is an nmap script. This is another one. This is another one, and so on. This happened because I used the A flag. There is nothing wrong. So we have a question here. I usually export an environment variable for the names like that. Do you think the host file is a better option? So normally I do that too, and it is a recommended practice because it's kind of difficult to remember the four different octets of an IP address. And so I'll normally put it to a variable. But so after interacting with any machine like this, and then if we have like a directly assigned name, such as internal here, then it is good to use the name. And sometimes you can find that kind of name on, say, if a machine is hosting a web application, you may be able to find it there. In that case, it is also recommended to add it to the host file. You may be able to discover some additional information that way. Now we vaguely see that some scripts were used, and we are going to dig a bit deeper into that. Just verifying there's my nmap.txt. Okay. I'm going to open it and keep it here. So if we want to see what more scripts we can test and run and play with, I'm just hitting Control Z and running BG to have this run in the background. I'm going to, whenever you have any question, the best source is Google or any other search engine for the matter, but I use Google. Let's see, nmap script default location. So the very first result tells us that they are stored in the scripts subdirectory of the nmap directory. So scripts is it's too generic. So I'm not going to look for that directory specifically. I will look for the nmap directory. We can use a find command on Linux to find any files, full directories specified by a name. I'm going to issue the command by specifying the type. So F is a file. If you're looking for files, you should use F. Otherwise, D for directory. Or you don't have to use that flag at all. Then it looks for both files and directories. I'm looking for directories here. So type D, and I'm going to use iname. That stands for case insensitive name. So this will not care if I do nmap or nmap. Iname will ignore cases. And map, and I'm going to add this command and that command, add these characters as well to angle bracket dev null. Locate everything that NSE, it's easier. That is true, but I'm going to demonstrate something here for a second. So we have the result here. Here's the Second pop quiz. Does anyone know what this does? Two angle bracket slash depth slash null. Subdirectory of the nmap main directory. I'm going to run ls on it and see what it has inside. It has a lot of scripts, and it would be pretty exhaustive to go through every single one of those. I want to quickly kind of demonstrate. So I was saying these are the script names. So if we do nb stat, so that is this one here that was run. Or if we also check this one, there I ran the command wrong. That's not the full name of the file. The name of the file is that and .nes. So now we know this is the directory nmap pulls its scripts from. And the same goes for all the other scripts below. Now, if we recall, we found SMB here and remote desktop here as well. I would say those are usually our interest because, as I said earlier, if we can find some kind of credential somewhere, we could potentially use it to have a quick, easy access to the machine. So a little bit about that dev null I mentioned earlier. For example, if I try to change the directory, let's say this directory does not exist, and it'll say no such file or directory. And if I redirect that error message to dev null, that won't show up and nothing will happen because the directory does not exist. So the reason why I ran this command with the redirection is if we run it as is, because my current user is not a root user, which means that this user does not have access to every single file and directory that exists on this machine. So I just quickly ran and stopped the execution of this command. It will return a lot of error messages, mainly permission denied. That's why it is recommended if you are trying to find the file, run it with the error redirected to dev null, then you don't have to deal with this massive wall of error messages. There is no matter what you run, there is standard output and there is standard error. So 2 is for the standard error and 1 is standard output. Similarly, if we were to do just echo Kirby, then we can see the output there. Similar to this, but now with this command, there is no error message, so nothing will change. There is nothing to redirect to. But if we now redirect the standard output to dev nothing happens because that's the standard output of this command. This can come in handy if we are just trying to do something, anything, and trying to make the output kind of neater and stuff like that, then this can definitely come in handy. Now back to our script, mf scripts directory. If we can see it here a little bit, we know that there are scripts that start with SMB2. This is -time, -security mode, etc. I'm going to try and find SMB scripts here. SMB, there. So starting from here, these are, we also see not SMB2, but just SMB related scripts as well. I'm going to use grep to see kind of what scripts there are. Oops. SMB. I'm issuing the command wrong because I can't exactly see the left corner of my screen there. Just try. There we go. So I use grep SMB and all the scripts with that start with SMB were returned. This is still quite a handful of scripts to go through, so we'll just run it and see what happens against the target host, and this shouldn't take as long because this is quite some handful of number of scripts, but now we are going to just run the scan on the SMB ports, so 139 and 445 by default, and see what comes back. If we look through here, we can see that there are SMB enumeration scripts and SMB kind of vulnerability scripts. There are more, of course, but these are kind of the two big categories I can see and divide them into. So we'll start with the enumeration scripts first, and then we'll move on to the vulnerability scripts. I'm going to run the command similarly, but as I mentioned, we do not have to scan all the ports anymore. And I'm going to, as I mentioned, we do not have to use the IP address anymore because we added the entry to the host file. And we will run it with the debug mode to kind of see what it's actually doing. And I'm going to save the output to a file. I will name it nmap smb enum. That's so we will see a lot of output because I now ran the nmap command with -d. It's kind of the debug mode. It provides some additional information. We can see that MS Script uses Lua version 5.4. We do not have to go through every single one of those. I just want to see and get a feel of like what it is doing exactly. And we can see there is the enum users script and groups. domains and a lot of other things as enum shares. So it is trying to log into the SMB, see if it allows anonymous login or stuff like that. I can also see that it is trying to brute force and find out what shares exist. The result came back much quicker than our initial nmap scan. And here's the script results. Says couldn't enumerate groups and access denied. So I don't see anything particularly here, access denied again. I don't think there is any usable information here. We'll move on to the vulnerability script. So specify it that way. And of course, I'll have to change the file name if I don't want that result to be overwritten. And that should be all I need to change. Let's run the command again and see what happens. Now we see some, so these are, yeah, they seem to be some kind of a vulnerability check script. So it's testing this vulnerability, MS06025, or this vulnerability, and so on. I'm seeing oh, a lot of errors here that may, it's not exactly what we want, but let's see. There are indeed a lot of errors, but I also see this showing up as vulnerable. And it says SMB version 2 exploit, CVE number, and it provides some additional links as well here. Disclosure date 2009, September 8th. We can definitely go through, and I actually highly recommend going through the advisories and kind of getting a better understanding of the exploit or vulnerability. Now that we have, where is it? The CVE number, we can of course use a search engine to find publicly known exploit scripts. That's certainly an option. This time I'm going to use a search exploit and try to see if it has any scripts for this vulnerability. So all my scans were saved successfully. I'll quickly write the CVE number to notes. Okay. Now, search exploit has many different usages. If we run this without any additional flag, I'll that doesn't go away for some reason. There we go. I like it when the help command or the default help output of a command shows nice examples like this. It's so much easier to see. And we see immediately um, how search exploit can be used to look for CVE here with the CVE number. Now imagine if we did not have information right here, we could, as we did before, I is for case insensitive, so this will look for CVE or CVE or any of the sort. And we notice that the identical output shows up. And here's the third pop quiz. Does anyone know why this is the case? We tried to grab for CVE and there's the string right there, and yet it just gave us the entire same output as if we ran just the command itself. Does anyone know why? So close. That's very close. So here I ran it with -hyphen CV, and it is still unable to find it. Before, if we recall, when I ran it with nmap, it highlighted that in red. Escape the dashes, that's definitely a thing that is required, but um, not exactly the answer. If it was just because those were duplicates, they both show up. It'll find every single occurrence, and then it'll just show all of them, all of the lines that include those strings. So the reason for and this was kind of, in my opinion, kind of advanced. It's not very like output isn't graphable. Like that's true in a sense. So if we remember a few minutes ago, I discussed standard output and standard error, and this wasn't graphable, you're right. But why is that? It's because grep is run on the standard output, and this is not the standard output, it's standard error, is like my leading theory here right now. So we can verify that by, yeah, so this annoyed me a lot when I was just starting to learn all of this and try it, and oh help, I want to grab this thing, and it wouldn't either just give me the entire option. Why isn't it giving me it used to drive me kind of mad, but now I know why. So if we, as I said, grep is run on standard output, which means that's like one and then redirection, whatever. So just to demonstrate, I'm going to put this to dev null, and then nothing should, because this doesn't seem to be an error, right? But it is. It's it makes sense in a way because I did not use the command as intended, so to speak. It's showing the usage and hey, run it one of those ways. try running it in one of those ways. And because I'm not doing that, it's kind of throwing an error message, which does not exactly appear to be an error message, but it is regarded as a standard error output. That's why if I redirect this to dev this does not show up at all. Now to fix this, I mean, not that it is broken, that's just the behavior of this binary. So it's not really, nothing is broken per se, but if we try to redirect this standard error message to standard output, it won't work because now I'm saying I can just run it in, show. What I just did was redirect all this information to a file named one. So if we redo cat1 or just let's do head1, not exact. Oh, I made these should not be separated because that command gets, yeah, I echoed it to a file exactly. So if we do head1, it's the same message. Same as if we were to do just search exploit. I wrote this entire output, standard error output, to a file named one. What does two angle bracket one do? So that redirects the standard error output to a file named one. Now then we might be wondering, well then how do we redirect that to the standard output? So we can specify that with the ampersand right in front of one or two then. So with this, I am redirecting the standard error to the standard output. So now finally, if we grab, let's say CVE, now it shows the correct, kind of not really the correct output, but the output we wanted, we expected. I'm a huge, like, personally, I'm a huge fan of the help flag. Like, no matter what it is, if I don't know how to use it, I'll just run help or hyphen hyphen help or hyphen hyphen um, or just this or this, no matter what binary it is. And it was challenging for me to know and find out that wasn't working when anything wasn't working the way I expected them to work. It was very confusing, but I eventually found out this is the case. So even if we do doing this because somebody says so, H and grep CB, it doesn't work because this is not the standard output, and grep gets only run on the standard output, this standard error. So now we know how to happily just conveniently get the information out of, I hope, any binary of our choice. So because now we know, well, now that we know how to do that, let's, gotta be messy. Search exploit CVE and give it a number. We see code execution, which it would be great if that worked. That would be, and it shows up on the first line. That's great. The next two lines, table dereference. I'm not exactly sure what that vulnerability is about, but I also see there's the Metasploit module, and this one is just a text file. The last three we are not exactly interested in because this is denial of service. We are going to just make the service stop running, and then what will be the point of that? Because this is kind of like a capture the flag practice. Same goes for kernel crash, same goes for blue screen of death. That will completely. I haven't tried it, so I don't know, of course, but that would probably stop the machine and you'd have to revert it or something. Because the first one sounds most promising, we'll go with that. So when we see any script that we like, we can grab it with -m, and we can see in the output. That's the exploit. URL is this, and this is where we are getting it from, the exploit DB, exploits folder in Windows Remote. And it has CV numbers assigned to it. And it's a Python script, and it was copied to this directory, which is where I am right now. My typo is bad today. Let's take a look at the script. I'll make it bigger. So we see some usage here. We can see some notes left by the author. I can see from here on line 19 and 20. This is Python 2 syntax. Oh, how do you know that? Because I've used Python 2 and then the support for it stopped and I had to start using Python 3. And I mean, it's always good to use like the most updated, latest versions of everything anyway. And then what happened there was there were some syntax changes. So we no longer can just use the print method without the brackets. We do have to use the brackets for the print method. It shows us a nice example. Run the Python script with the IP address and one. I don't know what that trailing one is supposed to do. And if we do not provide that, it will just exit. And we have the shellcode here. This is the MSF Venom command that was used to generate this long shellcode. Because this was the author of the exploit's localhost address when they tested it. So of course we'll have to adjust it accordingly to our environment. It's almost never the case. You download an exploit, you run it, and then it works. It's not going to be that. That would be too easy. It's not going to be the case most of the time. So it is important to read and understand the exploit first. This is some buffer, and that thing gets added to this variable and trigger the above. So it seems it attempts authentication to trigger the vulnerability. And it connects to the host and sends the buffer right there. Okay. Oh, and here it notes it needs to be triggered by an authentication event. Whether the authentication succeeds does not matter. That's good to know. So even if it says, oh, authentication failed, that does not mean the exploit failed. Comments are really important because they sometimes like this kind of give you important information. So don't just disregard like, oh, that's not like the functionality part of the script. Like it is important to sometimes we have nice comments in scripts we find, sometimes we don't, in which case we have to read the script to find out what it does. Okay, so we are going to run this command and get the value for that shell variable out of it. We are going to say ton 0 here to use our IP address. And Windows interpreter or TCP, yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. Now let's take a look. It came out as buff, and in the script, if you look, we have a shell here. We could use find and replace to replace all of them. That would cause it. So now our script, that's not no other variable has the string shell in them. But if, I mean, that's a string shell, which would be changed by find and replace all, and then the script will stop functioning properly. So that's not really ideal. Instead, we are going to do, believe it's v for variable. We can, of course, use MSF Venom with the grep as we have before and find out. But if I remember it correctly, it's v for variable. And if it doesn't work, of course, we'll look for a more solid information shell. Let's see. Yeah, it's v. Okay, good. So I just copied that entire output, and I'm going to, well, not the entire output, but the variable portion of the output and pasted it into our script here. So that now has our IP address information here as I specified with ton 0. And of course, we'll have to set up the listener. Let's, I'm going to set up the listener with, can you do it without methods? I mean, I can, but because, so what's important is if we, it's better the less we change anything about the original exploit. If it calls for interpreters, and you are absolutely free to change that, experiment on your own and see if it works or not. But odds are the best if you can kind of replicate the original proof of concept as is without too much modification. Of course, there are some things you have to modify, such as the IP address, but I mean for everything else. I'm going to run a command to set up my listener here. I'm going to run it quietly for Q and execute. I'm going to use multi-handler. What's funny about this is I would always put up Metasploit and framework and search multi-handler and blah blah blah, but um now I prefer it this way, just run everything all on the same line so that I only have to hit enter once instead of use multi-handler, enter, set lhost ton 0, enter, and stuff like that. I'm going to set the port 443 because I believe that's what it called for. Yep, and that's what I used as well. I'm going to set the payload exactly this. This is important. The payload used for your MSF Venom command and this payload specified for the listener has to match. Seems to be taking some time to complete this command. In the meantime, I'll open another terminal here, tab. It looks like my terminal rows, I hope. Um, okay, good. Something weird is happening. I don't know what's going on. Oh, there we go. Okay. Oh, scared me there. All right. We are going to run the script with this. And as we saw in the usage, we need to specify the IP address. Now, what's important is for the nmap enumeration script, as well as vulnerability check script, we use just the hostname internal. If we I'm not actually sure if it does or not, but if you pass that to Python the binary itself, and depending on how this method is implemented, it may not know what that means. So let's use the IP address for this. And we can absolutely just try the host name and see what happens. My guess is that it wouldn't work, but I might be wrong. Whenever you run anything with Python and then it says, oh, the module not found there, and so how I learned to resolve this is I just Googled it. Oh, I literally went on Google.com, Python module not found there, and no module linked, or like copy and paste this entire line, and then there were a lot of answers. That said, just install the module. I thought, okay, so we are going to do exactly that. Pip install SMB. Ooh, let's try Python 3 and PFP install SMB. Another thing I kind of remember, it's something, I can't remember the syntax in apt install Python 3 and the module name. Or is it gonna tell me to run? Oop, it didn't. Let's run and find out. Oh, okay. One more thing about the script. So it says buff plus equals shell can only concatenate string to stir. So yeah, so string to string, not bytes. So what that means is I try to attach, this is, these are bytes. And my buff variable, that's a string. So we have to make them the same. And because we are trying to send the bytes, it's best if we adjust that. Going to use, there should be find and replace, yes. This seems to be the pattern. Let's see. And I'm going to replace this with D to specify that these are bytes, not just strings. Replace all in document. Looks good. And I need to give it there as well. And I don't think anywhere else says buff uses this, like adds value to this variable. So I'm going to save this and run it again and see what happens. So it says cannot connect to server, entity status log on failure. But if we recall back a little bit, it did say the authentication success or fail does not matter. Let's check our listener. And I don't know why CD was there, but we have the shell. Well, get the UID of it, and let's see, sysinfo. It is our target machine internal, Windows 2008, and so on. We can run help to find more usage because Metasploit has so much to offer, and I feel like I don't use it to its full potential most of the time. But I mean, I think we often don't have to when we're just playing with capture the flag boxes. And that completes today's live session, and I'll stick around for a bit more to just answer some questions. And if you have other hash them for potential lateral movement, yeah, absolutely. Except that this is a standalone box, and so that's not relevant here. But yes, if it was like if this was a part of like Active Directory or just like in our challenge labs or whatever, then yeah, absolutely. I would do some more looking around within the machine to find potentially sensitive, if there is any sensitive information or something of value, like any credentials or any plaintext passwords, even hashes, and important information. I would definitely look for them. Somebody commented the weird thing about this script is that it doesn't actually seem to use the SMB module. I commented it out and it works fine. That's pretty funny. I mean, yeah, now that I think about it, it doesn't seem to actually call that, does it? Yeah, I don't think it. That's pretty funny. Oh, so what I installed there was it depend like on your Kali, this might work, just PnP install SMB or this, or I tried a couple of things and then I ran this to install the SMB module for my Python 3 installation and then it worked. I know this only because in the past I have been just trying to install a module and then this command or so, the output told me to run it like this, so I did it and it worked. So that's how I remember. That's why it is important to just, in general, try many different things to have like options. One doesn't work, try another one. That doesn't work, try another one until you are absolutely out of ideas. Then I would ask on Google, use Google to ask just in the search bar, oh, I can install this and that or whatever. Or NG, as somebody else mentioned, you can try commenting out that just import line and see if it works that way. I think that would be pretty funny. It happens because I think this is why the script was written in Python 2, and that must have been required if we were to run it with Python 2, but because it's out of support, it's not updated anymore, and so I'd like to, whenever I can, use Python 3. And if this was a larger script, I would absolutely just there are many, I believe, scripts that convert Python 2 to 3. Use those or manually modify, stuff like that. Oh, I also remember somebody mentioned previously during my stream here. So this command was locate and asterisk dot NSEN it shows all the nmap scripts, I think, and there are some other. This is not in the nmap directory, for example. That's from exploitive. That's also an option, I suppose. And we can absolutely use this as not sure if this will work. SMB. Oh, hmm. I don't use the locate command too often. I use find, so I'm not sure how, but I'm pretty sure it's possible. If there are no more questions, we'll wrap it up here. Thank you everyone for joining my live session, and we hope to see you again next time. Thank you.